It wasn't just another headline. On a quiet night in January, U.S. warships launched a series of precision strikes on targets deep inside Yemen. But this wasn't the beginning of the story. Just days earlier, Houthi forces in Yemen had launched missile and drone attacks on American naval vessels operating in the Red Sea, some of the most direct attacks on U.S. forces in the region in recent years. The Pentagon called it self-defense. But the timing, the intensity, and the strategic message behind it raised far more questions than answers. Why is Yemen, one of the poorest countries in the Arab world, suddenly at the heart of a global military escalation? Why is the United States, after years of indirect involvement, now taking direct military action? To understand that, we need to go beyond the headlines. Because this isn't just a local conflict anymore. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, where the Red Sea meets the Gulf of Aden, is one of the most important trade routes in the world. 12% of global trade passes through these narrow waters. When Houthi missiles threatened international shipping, it wasn't just about Yemen, it was about the entire global economy. The U.S. claims it's protecting freedom of navigation. The Houthis claim they're retaliating for Western support of Israel in Gaza. Iran, of course, lurks in the background, accused of backing the Houthi rebels with weapons and intelligence. But here's the truth. This conflict is no longer confined to Yemen. It's rapidly becoming a front line in a new kind of war, one where proxy battles, drone strikes, and naval skirmishes are shaping a dangerous new future. In this video, we dive deep into this rising storm. What led to the U.S. strikes? Why Yemen matters more than ever? And how this could spiral into a broader regional war. Welcome to a new chapter in Middle Eastern conflict. And maybe, the quiet beginning of something much bigger. Let me first explain the geographic importance of Yemen, because once you understand that, the rest of the story makes a lot more sense. Yemen sits at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. It borders both Saudi Arabia and Oman, but more importantly, it controls the entrance to one of the most strategic waterways in the world. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a narrow choke point between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. This strait is only about 20 miles wide at its narrowest point. But it's one of the busiest maritime passages on Earth. Roughly 12% of global trade, including millions of barrels of oil per day, passes through this corridor, heading toward Europe, the Suez Canal, and beyond. Any disruption here could send shockwaves through the global economy. But that's just the surface. Yemen's location also gives it a unique role in the power struggle between regional superpowers, especially Saudi Arabia and Iran. For Saudi Arabia, a stable and ideally friendly, Yemen acts as a southern buffer against threats. For Iran, supporting the Shia militant groups in Yemen, which are considered a branch of the anti-Israel resistance axis, gives Tehran both a strategic foothold in the region and a way to challenge U.S. allies in the Gulf. These fighters, often referred to in Western media as the Houthis, operate not just as local insurgents, but as part of a wider ideological movement, aligned with groups like Hezbollah and backed politically, financially, and militarily by Iran. Yemen's rugged terrain, weak central government, and deep tribal divisions make it a perfect environment for proxy warfare, where external powers can fund and arm local factions while avoiding direct conflict. But the recent escalation has changed the game. With these groups now launching attacks on international shipping, and even directly targeting U.S. warships, the conflict is no longer limited to regional actors. It's now drawing in global powers, and the consequences could ripple far and wide. Think of it this way. If the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf is the heart of oil flow in the east, then the Bab el-Mandeb is its western twin, and it's now under threat. That's why Yemen matters. Not just for Saudi Arabia, not just for Iran, but for the United States, China, Europe, for the entire global economy. So when missiles fly in this region, the world holds its breath. To truly understand the current crisis, we need to rewind the clock. Yemen's conflict didn't start yesterday. It's the result of years of instability, corruption, and foreign interference. After the Arab Spring in 2011, Yemen's longtime dictator, Ali Abdullah Saleh, was forced to resign. He handed power to his vice president, Abdrabbuh Mansour Hadi, in what was supposed to be a peaceful transition. But things didn't go according to plan. Hadi's government was weak, unpopular, and plagued by economic collapse. This opened the door for a powerful faction. The Shia militias in northern Yemen, often called Houthis, who had been fighting the government for years, stepped in and took over the capital, Sana'a, in 2014. By 2015, they had pushed south and were on the verge of taking the entire country. That's when Saudi Arabia intervened, launching a massive military campaign called Operation Decisive Storm, with the support of several Arab nations and quiet backing from the United States. The goal? To crush the Houthi-led movement, restore Hadi's government, and stop what they saw as Iran's growing influence in the region. But it didn't go as planned either. The Saudi-led airstrikes devastated civilian infrastructure, hospitals, markets, schools. Tens of thousands were killed. Famine, cholera, and displacement followed. Meanwhile, the resistance in Yemen only got stronger. Armed, trained, and supported by Iran, the Shia militias adapted, built their own missile and drone programs, and turned the war into a drawn-out, grinding stalemate. Over the years, they have struck deep inside Saudi territory, targeting oil facilities, airports, and even royal palaces. And now, with the war in Gaza, the Yemeni resistance has expanded their fight beyond Saudi Arabia, attacking Israeli-linked ships, threatening U.S. naval forces, and openly aligning themselves with the regional axis of resistance. What started as a local civil war has become a regional proxy war, and now, it's pulling in global powers, too. After weeks of rising tension in the Red Sea, the United States finally made its move. On January 11, 2024, U.S. and British warplanes launched a coordinated series of airstrikes against military targets in Yemen, including radar systems, missile depots, drone facilities, and command centers used by the Shia resistance forces. The operation was presented as a defensive action, a response to Houthi threats against shipping lanes and regional stability. But for many, this wasn't just defense, it was an escalation. For Washington, it was about sending a message. No one attacks American interests without consequences. Yet across the Middle East, this looked like a turning point, and Yemen's answer came swiftly. Just hours after the strikes, the Yemeni Shia militias launched a fierce retaliation. Multiple U.S. warships were targeted using anti-ship missiles and explosive-laden drones. Some of these attacks successfully hit their marks, reportedly causing severe damage to multi-billion-dollar American naval vessels, some of the most advanced in the U.S. fleet. These weren't symbolic strikes. They were clear. Yemen is willing and able to strike back. The U.S. insisted it wasn't seeking a wider war. "We are not at war with Yemen," officials claimed. "We are protecting international waters." But for Yemen's resistance, part of the broader anti-Israel axis, this was no longer about trade routes. This was a battlefield. And they promised more retaliation. Iran condemned the U.S. action. Iraqi and Syrian resistance groups threatened escalation. And Hezbollah in Lebanon reaffirmed its full support for the Yemeni fighters. What started in Gaza is now engulfing the Red Sea, with the U.S. drawn deeper into a regional firestorm. And the question remains, is this just the beginning of a much larger conflict? As we stand on the edge of yet another potential conflict, one question looms over the region. What's next for Yemen? The war in Yemen has already claimed hundreds of thousands of lives, displaced millions, and turned one of the world's poorest countries into a humanitarian disaster. Now, with the U.S. stepping in more aggressively, and with the Yemeni Shia resistance targeting American naval vessels in retaliation, the stakes are higher than ever. And it's not just about Yemen anymore. This conflict is no longer confined to one country, it's pulling in global powers, shifting the balance of the entire Middle East, and challenging the world order in ways we haven't seen before. The Red Sea has become a flashpoint, a strategic arena where the future of international trade, energy security, and military dominance will be decided. Will this escalate into a full-blown war between Yemen's resistance forces and the United States? Will we see new alliances form in response to this growing crisis? Or will cooler heads prevail, bringing peace to a region that has seen far too much bloodshed already? One thing is certain, the world is watching. If you found this breakdown insightful and you want to stay up to date on the latest developments, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video. Your support helps us bring you more in-depth analysis of crucial events like this one.